Hello, and welcome to another episode of the MindCep Podcast. And this is your host, Alex Muir, and this is episode 26 with our guest, Bracha Goetz. Bracha is the author of 38 children's books. She's a speaker, and she's a previous Harvard alumni, and she's not your typical Harvard grad, as she is the author of 38 simply written spiritual picture books. Her books are designed to make life's deepest concepts clear, so each uniquely beautiful soul can shine. She's also the author of the very candid new memoir for adults, Searching for God in the Garbage. Bracha Goetz can be contacted for presentations at brachagoetzbooks at gmail.com. And please welcome Bracha Goetz to the podcast. And this episode is brought to you by radioguestlist.com, the number one free radio guest podcast and talk show guest expert interview booking service on the internet. Bracha Goetz, welcome to the podcast. We're really happy to have you on today. And Bracha Goetz is the author of 38 spiritual based children's books. And one thing that I found very profound was the about your children's books is you said finding big ideas in little words.
Yes.
And lots of illustrations. So I find that really awesome. And I know when I was a kid as well, like I was always really drawn to pictures and movies, and kids are very like you said in your some of your books, they're very impressionable, and they can be taught critical thinking very early on. They just need to have the right coaching and the right mentorship to do so.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So Bracha, I really appreciate you joining us today on the podcast, and tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your story.
Okay. One of the main things that I am doing now is I'm just devoted to sharing basically how to overcome addictions. This is something that I think addictions are so widespread, and I've come up with something which is really amazing. It's based on ancient wisdom, and it's things that people really don't know. And so I'm really letting the world know these things now, wherever I can, whenever I can. I'm really devoted to this with my time. So I had food addictions in my life, and I actually think all kinds of addictions are related to each other. And so, the memoir that I wrote, it's called Searching for God in the Garbage, and it's basically the diary entries that I kept, and then they became journals when I got older, and letters and stuff like that I compiled together. So you actually see a person developing the food addictions and then recovering from them. So it's like kind of a journey that the reader becomes a part of. I call it more of an experience, because you experience how does a person develop an addiction, and then how do you overcome it, and how do you overcome it joyfully. That's really what I want to share. So it has to do, in my belief, with nourishing the soul. And we tend to think of ourselves as, just physical beings, because that's what we look like. We just look like a bunch of physical things, but the fact is that we are the physical being. The physical part of us is just coverings for our soul. We're really spiritual beings that are housed in physical bodies. So we think a lot about nourishing our bodies, but we have to nourish our souls. They correspond together. And when we have souls that are shining, then we really know how to live joyful lives. So that's what I spend my time doing, reminding everybody that they're spiritual beings, and that we need nourishment for the soul as much as we need physical nourishment for our bodies.
I really like the way you put that, because a lot of people, let's say my age and younger, I'm age 27, especially a lot of younger people, like we have this tendency to always like focus so much on the way we look and the physicality and all those things, and as you get older, you start to realize that's not really that important, long term. It won't really give you the meaning and fulfillment behind what you do and how you do it. It's always geared more towards your spiritual being, and like, like what is like, how's your heart, and how's your how do you relate to people, and how do you stay connected, and all those things mean a lot more than just what meets the eye.
That is really true. As when I was younger, that's how I really got the addiction, because it was so important to be thin. And like I got a lot of anorexic kind of behaviors and stuff like that. Like society was really pushing it. So I got so into that, but I, then I was so hungry, I was fluctuating between binge eating and anorexic behavior. So it was one or the other, and it was no kind of healthy type of eating. That's what was going on with that obsession of looking good and stuff like that. So but meanwhile, what I ended up discovering is that it was my soul that was starving, and that's what it had to do with. Like, what I finally realized is why, when I got the nourishment that my soul was craving, why was I able to heal from my addictions? Because that's what it was. Our souls are literally starving for nourishment. And if we don't give our souls the nourishment that they're craving, then we end up miserable in all kinds of different ways. And so we really, and like you said, we have to give our bodies healthy stuff too, and we have to give our souls healthy stuff. It's very parallel. So the nourishment of both our bodies and souls has to be in a healthy kind of way.
They both have to be in line. It's really
Right.
important. And
Aligned, exactly.
yeah, so my question for you is like, because you got a background in psychology and social relations, so I find that very awesome, because I can tell by the way you're writing in your books, it's very spiritual and psychology based. So it's like
Yes.
children really relate to it because you understand like how to connect with them on that level, right? Of where
Yeah.
where they're at and the age that they're at, because that's
Yeah.
another thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I never lost my sense of wonder about the world. So in that sense, I'm still childlike. I mean, I think you're that type of person too. I always love to be discovering the truth about the world. What is it based on? And I want to know whatever I can learn to help other people. And especially children, like you were saying, if children can learn from early on happiness skills, then they will have them throughout their lives. So that's why I try to instill these deep wisdoms into children. So why waste time? If I try to write the kind of books that I wished I had as a child. So
Right.
like, yeah, and they're kind of like Dr. Seuss in the way that I love the delight of Dr. Seuss, but I put in very deep spiritual messages in kind of a very joyful way. Like, for instance, I'm going to give you an example, like the Invisible Book. The Invisible Book is about all the things that we believe in that are invisible, like there's gravity, there's time, there's feelings, there's thoughts, there's even the wind. I mean, we these are all things that are so powerful in our lives, and yet we never see them, but we all believe in them. It's to make it more understandable that we are spiritual beings, that we have souls that are invisible. Because many people will say, how can I believe I have a soul? I've never seen it. But look at all the things, and I can explain this even to children. Children can get it. Children, we know about gravity. You let go of a book and it falls to the ground. A magnet picks up little paper clips because of invisible electromagnetism. We believe in all these invisible things, so it's not far-fetched to believe that we have invisible souls, and that we're all spiritual beings in another dimension. We all exist on a much greater dimension than the eye can see. Right.
Right, right. And going back to your food addiction you're talking about, and how it later on developed you have developed anorexia. What was your process for overcoming the food addiction? Because I was listening to one of your previous interviews, and you talked a little bit about how it was a development of events, and you utilize your writing in the books to showcase that process.
I love that you did so much research. I love this. Terrific. You really, that's great. So this is the amazing thing. Like, I couldn't understand why, when I finally got the spiritual nourishment that I was searching for, and I was really searching from like age 12, I started searching. From age 12, I started saying, this can't be all there is to life, that we just wake up in order to go to work and make money, to get food, to live another day, to go to work, to make, like, there's got to be more to this. And so
Yeah.
I was searching in all different religions until I finally came to my own religion. It's funny, but I searched all over the place. Finally, like, in my own religion, I found when I started to really get into the ancient deep wisdom in my own religion, I was able to, wow, like, understand things on such a deeper level than I ever did. For instance, like, um there was a rabbi that explains to me the deepest thing, like, what's the purpose of life? I was always walking around saying that, and like, I never heard anything like this before, that the purpose of life is to experience the greatest pleasure possible. Well, like, that doesn't sound like what you'd think, because, like, we think, oh no, that can't be it. To experience the greatest pleasure possible, people don't talk like that. But that opened up my mind, and then this he's no longer alive, this amazing rabbi, but he taught about the pleasure ladder, and so the pleasure ladder has 5 rungs to it, which are based on the 5 levels of the human soul. So on the most basic level are the physical pleasures. On the lowest rung are the physical pleasures, but they actually enhance our soul. They uplift our soul. So that's why when we eat, we get pleasure, and it actually uplifts us. And eating is actually the most basic pleasure and the easiest pleasure. That's why it's the most common addiction that there is, because oh my gosh, I was watching this show the other day, the 600-pound life or something. It was so
Oh yeah.
sad. It's so disturbing. It's a lot. They go into documentaries of a lot of people who are like over 600 pounds. Basically, it's the only pleasure they're getting from life. That's why they're stuck there. It goes into their lives and how they got more and more miserable, whatever happened in their past, and they got stuck on food. Why? Because it does bring pleasure. Like, food could have been designed to be colorless and tasteless. It could have all been gray. It could have had no aroma, but that's not, it was designed to give us pleasure. There's an infinite variety of stuff, all different colors. And like, when you pick a fruit from a tree, it's at its brightest color. It's meant to be at its most attractive place when it's ripe and ready for us to eat. And one of my books, Hashem's Candy Store, is showing about the wisdom in the fruits and vegetables. It's incredible, all the design that went into them. So, and then just the miracle of a seed, what a tiny seed can do, replenish into a tree over and over again. It's the wisdom is so infinite and amazing when we study it. So basically, the problem is that when a person is not really happy in life, it's easy to get stuck on an addiction, and an easiest one of all is the food addictions. So that's why they're so common. And um, so how you break the addiction, the amazing thing is, when you realize that life is meant to be a pleasure, is you have to substitute in a greater pleasure right that very minute. It doesn't even have to be a greater pleasure. It just has to be a different pleasure, so that a person can realize, um, generally a person overeats because they're feeling a scarcity of pleasure in their life. So
Ah,
yes, you have to know that there's no scarcity of pleasure. There's an abundance of pleasure in this world, but a person is filled with a sense of fear and anxiety that they don't have enough pleasure, so they just keep eating to feel pleasure.
yep.
Yeah, it's really true. And if you see those 600-pound, oh my gosh, it's so their life becomes more and more miserable. But but meanwhile, they can't change it because they're stuck with the only pleasure that they have in life, which is the eating. So they're not going to give up the one pleasure they have. So
Yeah, yeah.
what has to be done, this is the crux of the whole thing, is you have to substitute in other pleasures and realize that there is an abundance of pleasures in this world, that life is really meant for pleasure. Many people that have had lives of neglect or abuse, some kind of trauma in their childhood, that's why they get stuck in an addiction. It could be drugs, alcohol, a substance. It could be a substance addiction, or it could be a behavioral addiction. And they get stuck there many times from abuse, neglect, whatever. For me, that wasn't the case. And that's why in my case, so many people have to first um, explore the trauma, the emotional blockage, so that the spiritual nourishment can get in. Sometimes, if a person is getting spiritual nourishment, but they have an emotional blockage, the spiritual nourishment can't even bring them pleasure until they explore and are able to get rid of that blockage in their lives. It kind of means facing it, and because running away from it takes a lot of energy. A lot of people spend time just running away from that. But you have to kind of face the blockage. And when you do, then you're able to, and sometimes with therapeutic help is needed in order to get rid of that blockage. But but still, the more that you can strengthen your soul so that it's shining, then the more nourishment you're giving it, the more chance you have to overcome your addiction. So it can be done at the same time. At the same time as a person is working on their emotional blockages, they can also be feeding their soul. And if they don't have an emotional blockage, then just feeding their soul is all that they need. They just that's why for me it's what was able to be healing in my life. And so again, the lowest level is pleasures, which you could substitute in a different pleasure. You could right away, when let's say a person feels like just overeating, and that's the problem. The problem isn't eating junk, it's overeating junk. That's really the problem.
Right.
so like so you can just turn on, if you just think about it, you go, the question that I really encourage people to ask is it my body that's hungry, or my soul?
Yeah, I really like that statement a lot because everyone goes through these kinds of phases, whether it be addiction based or behavioral. And I definitely notice for myself, it's always behavioral. I don't have an addictive personality per se, but um, when I'm going through something career related or relationship related or something like that, I always have a tendency to on occasion, binge eat because, like you said, because I'm going for
Right.
that physical. That's one of the physical pleasures.
Right. And you
So
and you want more pleasure in your life right then.
exactly, exactly. So, and the way I bet you within those five levels of the human soul, there's the physical pleasure. There's probably financial because of having the additional funds allows you to do more, allows you to explore more, travel more, that kind of thing. So, anytime I'm going through that, I'm definitely aware of it. But sometimes you're like, okay, well, what can I do differently?
Right.
Because for me, it's like always I have to tweak the behavioral.
Right.
So would you recommend? Because I have a mindfulness routine that I have to practice for myself because it helps me stay on track. And they
Yeah.
say that the daily meditation helps actually create more positive neural pathways in your brain.
Yes.
I've been doing meditation for the last 3 years. I did it when I
Yes.
first was about to leave banking because I was just so stressed and I just felt I was going into the day too reactive. So I'm like, okay, what
Yes.
can I change in my behavior that'll help with that? And the second that I started to do daily meditation for 5 minutes or more, I started to notice a huge difference in my psyche.
Wonderful.
Do you practice any sort of mindfulness principles or routine like first thing in the morning?
All the time.
Yeah.
I've just become that kind of a person. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like appreciating the moments
Yeah.
and having so much more gratitude for whatever I have. It's exactly right. And what you said, research has actually been done. It takes like 400 repetitions for a synapse to change in our brain, but if we do it in a pleasurable way, in
Mm.
like 10 repetitions of the new habit can be you can install a new habit in just 10 times if you do it joyfully. So that's the whole trick, is adding more pleasure to your life. Exactly. Throughout the day. It and like you said, it could be other physical pleasures. Like, let's say if a person is overeating, they turn on music and they start dancing or stretching. They just don't feel like continuing to overeat suddenly. It's like, what happened? Or let's say they call or text somebody lonely. That desire to overeat just goes away, because suddenly, you're doing something different that's changing. Or you're out in nature, you spend time out in nature, or like you say, you're meditating. You're you, you you- you're getting in touch with a higher part of your soul. It's kind of, the amygdala in the back of the brain is the reptilian, the lower part of the brain coming up from the brainstem. And and that's the part that reacts. It reacts impulsively and gets us to do impulsive things. So by saying, is it my body that's hungry or my soul? Right away, the neurons start going to the prefrontal cortex instead of the amygdala. They start going there. And so it changes your behavior. Um, you stop being so impulsive, and you start thinking, oh wow, yeah, which part of me? And then you could recognize the abundance in the world again once you're aware of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I've got a few of those down now for the 5 levels of the human soul. Um, and so I've got down physical pleasures, so like eating, music, exercise, nature. So,
Yes.
so for instance, if you have a client or a child that's suffering from overeating, and their parents want to get them to shape, they can replace to help them trying to develop some sort of exercise routine. Maybe the mom or the dad helps them like they exercise together with their
Yeah.
child while playing music. So it's like you're combining two parts of the 2 levels of the pleasure ladder.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then
Absolutely beautiful.
yeah, and then going out in nature for like a walk or a run, something like that, right? So it's like you're getting all those synapses firing and replacing the bad behavior with good behavior.
Exactly. And so joyfully. It's just like, what's there to lose? You know what I mean? There's no money involved, there's no special diet. It's just a part of enjoying life more. Exactly. Right. So also, I continue. The first level is physical, like we talked about. The second level is love. And
Ah.
and love doesn't mean sitting by the phone waiting for someone to call you. It
Yeah.
means, yeah, it's an empowering. All of these rungs are ways for a person to bring it into their lives. It's not dependent on anybody else. So a person never has to sit around and wait for love. It involves, this is love where it involves appreciating another person. What do you value about this person? Focusing on other people. This is how you bring love into your life, and doing kindnesses for other people. This is how anybody could bring love into their life. So, not dependent on other people's reaction. It's an empowering thing. A person can bring more love into their lives by focusing on the virtues of other people. And then we go up to the third level, is meaning. Doing things that are meaningful and good for the world. All of this brings more, and each level up brings more lasting joy. So then the third level is meaning, and the fourth level is creativity. Doing anything creative that is, again, that's positive for the world and uplifts our world, it brings even more lasting pleasure. I'm sure you know when you're involved in something creative, you don't even know how time is passing. It just you're in another zone, you know? It's like this incredible feeling. So anything creative, again, this is all coming it's all breaking down barriers and expanding into the world further and further. The highest level is transcendence. And what happens in transcendence is that the illusion of separation between everybody and everything dissolves. We the whole reason why a person is has an addiction is because they feel separate and they feel cut off and disconnected. So each level higher brings more and more connection to people and to the entire world. Involves animals, involves plant life, involves everything, so that the illusion of estrangement dissolves. We see the connection between us and everybody. And that's the highest level. It's a state of awe, really, when you look up at the sky at night and you see all the stars and you feel so connected to the universe. That's reaching the highest level. So so this is and we can have that state of awe in our lives throughout the day, not all the time. We can't remain in a state of awe, but we can bring it back, like you saying, through meditation, through
Yeah.
mindfulness. All these things help us to have a sense of gratitude for life. And can you imagine, there's no more room for an addiction when your life is so full of all this joy.
So
Yes,
so it's filling up your soul with multiple levels of these, or getting to each level of these, the pleasure ladder.
exactly.
Yeah, I got them
You
all written down here. This is excellent because
wonderful.
it's going to help our listeners and myself really understand how to prioritize your psychology and your vigor and your physicality,
Yes,
to help counter any of your behavior that you want to kind of take out or improve upon.
exactly. Life is meant to be a pleasure. That's something we don't hear enough of. And
Yeah, yeah,
that's the real truth. Yeah,
yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
And I was just gonna say, like, because we're constantly bombarded of like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this, you
Hmm.
got to work really, really hard, and like, and I get all that, but at the same time, there's not enough people saying, oh, like, like it's life's meant to have fun. You got to have fun, and I've been really trying to focus on just that for the last little while, because I just feel like everything for the last, like, a decent part of my life has just been out of necessity, and that gets dry.
Yeah, yeah, and you'll never work a day in your life when you're enjoying yourself. I mean, I learned about you too, and different parts of different jobs, how you've enjoyed them, and that's really what it is. It's finding what makes our soul shine. When our soul is shining, we could do this forever. You know, I mean, because it's why we're here in this world. So and we'll always be energized from it too. That's the thing, and it doesn't feel like work. And it's not like doing challenging things is part of can be totally pleasurable. Climbing a mountain can be totally pleasurable. So it doesn't mean that we can't do challenging things. For sure we can. And it's just remembering that life is meant to be a pleasure. So if you're not having a pleasurable experience right this very minute, then we can figure out what we can do to make it pleasurable. We have the power. We have infinite amount of soul power within us to make every moment a pleasurable moment. We really can do that.
Yeah, I love that. And because it's making that conscious decision to be like, you know what, I want to make today a great day. And
Yes.
that was like a little psychology trick that I learned when I was working at a call center. Um, the guy, one of our trainers said to us, he's like, Alex, he's like, sometimes our day is not going to be great, but if we say today's going to be a great day, it'll help trick our mind into, like before we even start the day, that, oh, you know, we might not necessarily have an overall great day, but it'll help us cope and recognize that, like there's going to be great parts of this day. It might not be entirely great. Might have our challenges, but it's going to be, our mindset will put us in the great state.
Yes, our mind state is essential.
Yeah.
totally essential. we and really every every moment can be pleasurable. Even let's say you're in this call center, you're making cold calls. That could be a really humiliating experience. Or it could be, wow, you know what? what's you know what, it's maybe interesting to be humiliated. Maybe I'll become a higher person by becoming humiliated. Can I live through this? Can I still feel good about myself if this becomes a totally humiliating experience for me? Let's see if I can challenge myself to still feel good about myself. I mean, I don't know, you can make up all kinds of challenges. You can turn anything, you know what, you can spin anything to make it joyful. That's the incredible part. And many people that have gone through abuse or neglect in their childhood have a really hard time changing that view of life. So that's a critical um, that's a critical not challenge. It's like a roadblock. They really kind of have to deal with that roadblock because it may be too hard to overcome the challenge otherwise, and they'll keep getting stuck in a cycle of addiction, so sometimes you have to deal with those things in life in
Yeah.
order to empower your soul to
Yeah.
be able to shine through. Because like in the title of my book, Searching for God in the Garbage, we all have a ton of garbage that gets put on
Yeah.
us every day. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
if you're making cold calls every day, oh my gosh, that is like a ton of garbage being thrown on top of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for your soul to shine out from under all that garbage is mighty hard. It is really hard. You got to give yourself a lot of pleasure doing that while you're doing that actual humiliating work. But anybody, a garbage collector, anybody can turn a job into something amazing. Through the mind. People in prison can be really not in prison, depending on what they're doing. If their soul is not in prison, then they're not in prison. You know,
Right.
um, so it's really, we have it within our abilities. If we're here on this earth and we still have a soul, if we're still breathing, then we have the potential to make our lives pleasurable every single day.
Right on. And then I got another question for you. What what motivated you to write so many books, and how did that all come together? When you Yeah, have you always been a writer, or did it evolve over time and you're like, I want to write children's books because I want to create and cultivate spiritual based education from a young age?
Yeah, both of those things. Like I was writing from when I was a little child, and I have no idea why. I was always writing in rhyme, maybe because of Dr. Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss so much. So, but then when I started to have children, I when I was sitting out in the playground, I started writing. And it's it's crazy. I wrote something on a piece of loose leaf paper, not even typed it on a computer, stuck it in an envelope and sent it off, and it was accepted. And like, I go, oh wow, I guess this is how you write children's books. Yeah, so I started doing it. And of course, having children, I had endless material about, what to write about, what children need. And I have an endless desire to want to fill children, make children aware that they're spiritual beings. And so that's what I started writing these books, and that's just how it came about. Yeah, and it brings me a tremendous amount of joy to do it. Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, it's awesome. And I love the fact that you've been writing children's books, because a lot of kids aren't learning this kind of stuff, and like
Right.
you're really teaching them like the meaning of life in bite-sized chunks,
Yeah.
so they can really start to understand and grasp the information.
You got it exactly.
Yeah, yeah, because I wish I would have learned this stuff when I was younger, because
Right.
I've always been drawn towards like spirituality and building my psyche and building mental toughness and tenacity. It's always just been something that I've been intrigued by.
Yes.
But I wish I would have learned it earlier, because I just feel like it would have given me even more of a head start and an edge.
Exactly. Why not teach children from the earliest point onward how they can be happy in life? what really matters, what's most important. This is what goes missing. So that's exactly what I feel we have to teach children. Exactly.
No, for
Yes.
sure. And then what else do I got here? Um, oh yeah, one of your other books went into good detail into children or teenagers' use of social media and how it can impact their self-esteem or confidence from a young
Yes,
age.
yeah, I want to be famous because, everybody wants to be famous as a kid. And,
Yeah,
and here's, so this boy, he actually becomes famous just as a person could. Someone like does a YouTube video of him and becomes famous overnight. And, just as quickly the fame fades away. That's how it works. So,
yeah,
it doesn't last. Again, it relates to what kind of pleasure lasts. Then he discovers that there's a spotlight within, and that's our soul. If we can get our soul to be ignited and shining, then every day will be our day. We'll be rejoicing every day, and every day will feel like a parade. So so basically, that's the concept that I'm trying to share with children, that the importance of nourishing your soul throughout life. It's just as important as nourishing our bodies, which we can't thrive unless we're giving our bodies healthy food, and our souls can't thrive unless we're nourishing our souls with what makes them healthy as well. Exactly.
yeah. Because the whole psychology component of that is like, that's why I've been so drawn to it, and is really like honing in on my spirituality and continually building that mental toughness and tenacity, and that's strengthening and nourishing your soul. That's what it comes down to, and that's like I was trying to find the words for it, but you nicked it right on the butt there.
Oh, wonderful. I hope you're always blessed to enjoy your work, because you have so much. I just feel so much joyful potential,
Oh
to
yeah,
share with the
yep.
world.
Oh yeah, same here. And like this is why I do my podcast, because
Yeah.
like the way I think about it is I want to create better, positive human beings, especially like younger, like the next generation. I'm thinking about the next
Yes.
generation that's going to listen to
Yes.
this and they'd be like, oh my god, I'm so happy I have like this kind of silent mentor who even if even when I pass away, like all of this information will get shared with the next generation and they're going to listen to it, and that's kind of like my impact
Beautiful.
is like to continue on that education and the principles and tools and tactics from all the guests that I have on. It'll be really helpful to a lot of people.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing I wanted to ask you, Brecke, was what do children like most about your books, and how do you get a child that is not a regular reader to start reading?
How do you get a child? Yeah. Oh, that's not a regular reader to start reading. Definitely by reading to them. They
Ah, yeah.
that definitely read as much, even when they're capable of reading, they still love being read to. It's a great joy to do that. And what do children love about my books? I remember somebody telling me, one of my books is called The Happiness Box, about it's a you get inside the box and all you could think is happy thoughts. So then the boy realizes again that the happiness box it's not what goes on inside this cardboard box. It's really in your brain. Anybody's brain can turn into a happiness box if you focus on what you're grateful for. So I know one time this young guy came to my house and he saw the book. I have all my books up, and he goes, "You're the one that wrote that? Oh my gosh." He goes, like, "I was bullied so much in school. I couldn't face the next day going back. And I would just go inside my happiness box. After I read that book, that's what got me to go back to school the next day. I could face it again. I became a grateful person. I was able to overcome the bullies, I was like, wow. So
Wow, that's
I
incredible.
yeah, that's what I feel. And yeah, and I even have books about helping children prevent abuse, helping children to be aware of abuse and how to stay away from it and not get pulled in by predators. It's all of this is to just help people have more joyful lives. There's even a book about sensitizing children to other children with disabilities. That's Let's Appreciate Everyone, so that you know how better to interact with children with disabilities or other people with disabilities. It says one of the main things is there's a 5-letter word, and it's not stare, because everybody just stares. What people with disabilities want is for you to smile. They want to be smiled. They want to be talked to. They want to be included. So whenever you can do that, it's not always easy, but it's really what's needed in this world. And you hear that from the people themselves that have disabilities. Some disabilities are not visible. That's another thing that's invisible. But you'll see some children, they don't know how to get along with other children so well, but still try to include them, invite them to parties. They're the ones that never get invited. These are just all ways to make the world better, and young children can learn these skills. So that's what I'm sharing. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. If you have anything else you want to add, let me know. I think we've gone through all my questions that I had to ask.
Thank
And
you so much.
yeah.
I would just tell people, if you're interested in any of my books, they're all on my Amazon author page. So you just look up my name, Amazon author, and they're all there. Yeah. Thank you so
Awesome.
very
Oh
much.
yeah, I really appreciate you joining us on the podcast today, Bracha. And then, are you active on any other social media? I think I see you're on Twitter. Do you have any other social media that you're active on, sharing
Oh,
your articles or pieces from your books?
Facebook and LinkedIn.
Facebook and
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Beautiful. All right. Well, appreciate your time today, Bracha. It was an awesome interview, and I'll be sure to share. We'll share all your links to your books and your social media, LinkedIn and Facebook. And I'm sure many people will be, especially the younger generation as well, will be want to listen to this and gain some further knowledge and how to build up their spirituality and mental toughness.
You're a wonderful person. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing all the wonderful things ahead for you. Thank you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Thanks again.
Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed this special guest series episode brought to you by radioguestlist.com. Again, this is your host, Alex Muir. And if you'd like to learn more about kind of what I do and this podcast, MindCep Podcast, you can check me out on my social media. I always post all my links of my social media in every episode that I post. And I share all my posts, my podcast posts on my LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So you'll be able to check out the podcast links on there. So if you want to connect with me, get to know me, I will be answering messages on there. If you have any questions. And again, if you want to hear more episodes like these, or if you have any feedback, please let me know on social media. You can send me a message, or you can feel free to follow my podcast, and be sure to keep checking in and see what I'm up to. I really appreciate everyone that listens to my podcast, and hope you guys all enjoyed, and see y'all next time. Take care.